Welcome to the First Look, or TFL. In TFL, we take a brief look at up-and-coming games and decide if they are worth your time and money. In the top left corner, you'll see a small FPS counter. This is to give you an idea of the performance of the game. Sometimes this FPS counter will be in the right if this is not a Steam game. We'll discuss the positives and the negatives, the performance, and the options of the game to give you a more informed decision before purchasing, and finally, whether or not I would recommend this game for you. Let's talk about this game, Battletech. So first off, Battletech started out as a tabletop game. Some of you may not know that. Some of you may be more familiar with Mech Warrior. Mech Warrior is actually inside the Battletech universe. So if you're familiar with Mech Warrior, you're kind of familiar with Battletech, but playing Mech Warrior is like reading one of the 7 Harry Potter books. You're not going to get the full picture, and there's a lot more to Battletech in general. This is, I believe, the first fully fledged game of Battletech, as is. It was kickstarted, and you can tell that a little bit, but we'll talk about that in a second. It was kickstarted, and it met its goal, and it was built inside the Unity engine. Speaking of Unity, let's talk about the game's technical specifics. First off, this game runs like crap. On a GTX 1080 when I really have nothing else going on my PC. Most of the time, about 60 to 70% of the time, it averages, at 60 FPS. I'm sure it could do more if I turned off VSync. I don't turn off VSync during these videos because most people play at 60 FPS. Some 20 to 30% of you play at 144 or higher. But there aren't also a ton of games that can consistently hit that frame rate. So I always do 60 to give you guys an idea. This game runs like ass. 60 to 70% of the time, it does hit 60 FPS. The other 30 to 40% of the time, it's between 50 FPS and 12 FPS. Certain set pieces really degrade the FPS of this game pretty bad. Maybe that's because it's built inside the Unity engine? Not entirely sure. There's also an issue with save files. You have to regularly delete your old save files. If you do not regularly delete your old save files, then it causes performance issues over time within the game as things will slow down. Also because it's built inside the Unity engine, ironically. In terms of options, it's not bad, but it's not good. Again, because it's in Unity, there is no borderless windowed, which is what I tend to play most of my games in because of Windows 10 native mouse acceleration if you full screen your games. Being in Unity, it comes with some good rebinding and whatnot. It does have some good key rebinding issues. Graphically, it tells you something and it doesn't tell you others, like anti-aliasing, on or off. Okay, what type of anti-aliasing? I would like to actually know that, because if it's FXAA, I want that off. It's blurry and smudges edges and looks like shit. But if it's TXAA or SMAA, those aren't so bad, There are options here, but they're not really fully fleshed out like you'd want them to be. So, that's another ding against it. So it runs like ass. It's got okay options in the menu. They're there. It has fully adjustable audio sliders, which is wonderful. Most games don't have those these days. I don't know what's up with that. So moving off the technical aspects of the game, let's start with the story, which is the main bulk of the game. The main campaign revolves around you fighting for an Empress's throne back. You learn that in the first 15 minutes in the game. Not a spoiler. Basically, this Empress is besieged, thrown out, and you're trying to take her throne back. The mercenary aspect of the story is pretty cool, but that's kind of more of a gameplay mechanic thing we'll talk about then. But the story itself is actually pretty good. The best way I could describe it is Game of Thrones in space with battle mechs. And it's pretty neat because of that. You actually kind of get attached to the characters. They have some pretty good writers. You have some pretty good and interesting companions, especially when they get to talk. Big knock against the game is that it is not fully voiced. There is a ton of reading, and I hate reading in video games. If I want to read, I'm going to go read a book. And I read books all the time, which is why I play video games. I don't want to have to read. I want to be told a story. That's the whole point of having interactive mediums in video games. So not having a fully voiced campaign where I have to sit and read like 80 to 90% of it really, really sucks. You know, if it was tiny lore tidbits here and there, I'd be like, yeah, okay, that's all right, but you gotta read like most of it. And it's not a short game, by the way. The character customization itself isn't actually that bad. It's a lot more fully fleshed out than I thought it would be. I thought it'd be really, really sparse or non-existent, but there is actually some pretty decent customization, so you kind of feel like your character is your own. And your companions are pretty neat. They kind of got their own attitudes, and you kind of feel your own voice for them inside your head, just like subconsciously, because they're fairly well animated. There's a mix of 3D and like painted drawed art style, and it works out really, really well for the campaign. Moving on to the gameplay, first we'll talk about the mercenary aspect of it. Like I said, this is why I deviated it from the story, because it's very much more of a gameplay mechanic. You're a mercenary that, as you move through the main story, going from planet to region, you are often purposely stopped and made to go do side quests. And it's actually a thing I recommend you do a lot more of. There is not a difficulty slider in this game, which I have to, again, knock it for. Like, no difficulty slider. Not everybody wants Dark Souls all the time. You're, again, limiting the amount of people you're going to sell this game to, okay? You can have games be ridiculously hard and still be widely acceptable to a large audience. Just look at God of War recently. The God of War, or Give Me God of War difficulty on the new God of War is absurdly difficult, but then it's got like a normal mode that most people can get through just fine. There's no reason you cannot do that here, because I would really like to just blaze through and enjoy this story and be told all of it in full, because it's a really dope story, but there's no difficulty slider, so you gotta take a painstaking amount of time. You can relieve some of the difficulty by doing side missions. Side missions give you money, they allow you to spend a lot more money on your mechs, and the more money you spend on your mechs, generally the better chance you're going to have overall. Stacking armor on top of them, better weapons, retrofitting them entirely, or getting bigger, bulkier, or specialized type of mechs on your line. There's generally 3 types of mechs, and then wide class variety in between all of them. There's big, heavy, bulky mechs that just have a gambit of weapons on them. There are medium mechs that have a decent amount of weapons, but can also move at a pretty good clip. And then there's smaller scouting mechs that can move around the battlefield really fast to get you information, but have really shitty weapons usually. You can do all kinds of crazy and fun things with this, with mechs within their limitations if you have the money for it. Which is why the side missions are kind of recommended that you spend more time within the side missions, because as long as you have money to do stuff, it's actually pretty fun. The mech customization is crazy. You can go from top to bottom, strip them out completely, retrofit all entirely, new weapons, big decent armor, not that much armor. I mean, it's a huge gambit of all kinds of fun and interesting stuff. Really highly customizable here. The gameplay in general, when you're actually in, is it's like chess, but with battle mechs. And it's dope. It's pretty fun for the most part. You're gonna be shooting lasers and missiles and gauze cannons and all kinds of fun stuff at enemies. But there's a lot of animations in between. It's cool to see the animations for like the first 5 or 6 hours, and then after that you kind of don't care. You just kind of want the battle to get on because you care more about the story and the people within the story than the actual animations of the fight themselves. It's always cool seeing like a new weapon or a new mech the first time out, and then it kind of starts to wear thin. There is, you can speed up the in-game animations by, messing with some game files. It's not something I've done yet, but I'm probably going to end up doing it just to make the game flow a lot smoother on myself. So the gameplay is not that bad, especially if you like turn-based chess with battle mechs. It's pretty dope. It's a hard sell for somebody that enjoys much more fast-paced games, because again, it is a fairly slow turn-based type of game, very much akin to XCOM in that sense. Because you have heat management, you can't fire weapons over and over and over again without getting too much heat on your mech. You have inspiration to use certain abilities and special abilities in unique ways to get that in combat. You have cover, not covered, bracing, being entrenched and guarding, status effects on mechs, all kinds of fun stuff. And it makes sense within the world and within the gameplay, and it's pretty neat. All of that really adds up to not that bad of a gameplay experience. If it was just a little bit faster, it would be a lot more fun. Overall, Battletech isn't a bad game, but it's not a good game, and certainly not a great game either. This game could have been good or even great with a few changes. One, if it hadn't been built in the Unity engine, I really feel like the Unity engine makes this game suffer. Two, if it had been fully voiced. If this game had been fully voiced, I would be a lot more forgiving on some of these other issues because I wouldn't be aggravated with having to read all the time. Three, bugs and the save issues. Stuff like that still exists, and you find it throughout, and that's kind of annoying that you have to deal with that. Most of these things, I think they come from, like, the fact that it's a kickstarted game. Like, they did what was in budget. And for the options, they're there, but they're not, like, fully fleshed out like they should be, with a lot of stuff. And so that kind of hurts the game as well. I've been playing this game purely because I enjoy the story of it a lot. And I'll probably continue to play this game just to see the story through, even though I have some nitpicks and gripes with it. Is it worth your time and money? Well, do you like turn-based strategy games? If you do, then yeah, absolutely. If you don't like turn-based strategy games, maybe not. This isn't a turn-based strategy game that's going to change your mind about turn-based strategy games, because it has a lot of the problems that turn-based strategy games have, ideally the one of being just too slow in a lot of scenarios. Lastly, the asking price, $40. A little steep, in my opinion, considering, and this is to say that you'll definitely get a good bunch of hours out of the story, 20-30 hours out of the story, but the quality of the game, that's where I would knock it. It doesn't feel like a $40 game. It feels like a $30 game. Yeah, I could give it 30. Comfortably, it feels like a $20 to $25 game. 25 actually seems to be the sweet spot in my opinion. 20 is maybe a little too low. 30 you can definitely, absolutely, arguably get away with, and I think 30 would be a fair price. $40, it's a little much. I think, yeah, it's just a little much. So, Battletech, overall, do I recommend it? If you enjoy turn-based, yeah, sure. If not, this isn't going to change your mind about turn-based. For the $40 asking price, I really wish there'd have been a more fully featured multiplayer modes, which we didn't even talk about because there's not really a lot there. I wish it had been fully voiced. I wish it wasn't in the Unity engine because that creates a lot of its own problems. Yeah. If you like turn-based and you like Battletech, you're gonna like this game. If you don't like turn-based and you don't like Battletech and you don't like games like XCOM, just pass on this one, guys. Thanks for watching this first look of Battletech. I am Guns. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on alerts for all of our future upcoming content and first look at video games. You can watch me live over at twitch.tv/GUNZGAMES or follow me on Twitter at the number 3 GUNSDOWN to hear me tweet angrily about things that I hate or don't understand. I'm Guns. Have a good day, guys. GG.